Salam Soumia, and it's really lovely to be here with you, and I'm really excited about our conversation. Just to give a bit of context, we're at Henad Kalma Farm in Doha, and you came all the way from Senegal to join a 2 weeks architecture program for students to support them with permaculture principles, informing them about what are the principles of permaculture or even regenerative architecture. So I want to talk a bit about you and your journey, how you transitioned from an architecture practice in France to working with regenerative architecture principles in Senegal. Like, would you be happy giving a quick introduction about yourself and your background in architecture?
Sure. First of all, thank you for the invitation to this experience. I really enjoy sharing with the students, and I'm very familiar with the context of Henad Kalma Farm also. So it's for me like back to home. So I'm Soumia Masmoudi, architect, urbanist, and permaculture designer. I traveled in many countries, so it wasn't like a choice. It was like a kind of starting with having more interest on ecology and then landscaping, and by living in one of the most densest areas in Ho Chi Minh. So this becomes like a kind of eureka for me to introduce the permaculture to my practice. So yeah, today I moved from Qatar and we are living in Senegal, where I continue working as an architect, permaculture designer, using this regenerative design. It's a kind of more value-oriented project. Maybe we overuse sustainability word, and we forget that this word, I mean, it's very new, and that before doesn't mean we weren't sustainable, but we as architects, we feel like we are giving it a lot of a structure. So in regenerative design, I find myself like more working with universal concepts, but without naming them.
Yeah, I also feel like the sustainability has become a kind of open concept. It can be a very jazzy word. It can be used for greenwashing, and it can be interpreted in different ways that everyone can mean something different. So, but at the same time, there is this common approach of explaining sustainability with the famous three main pillars: the social, economic, and the ecological aspect of it. So you have to create the social equity, etc. But then you see that as an open concept. So something doesn't work there, right? Mm-hmm. And also we all know now that because greater damage to the world than kind of having steps to protect it. So what do you think has gone wrong in defining sustainability? What is sustainability to you?
I think if we worked with the word ethics, it will be more correct. Mm-hmm. So using word sustainability is something that you can play with this concept. Mm-hmm. And you can like even play with it in an ethical way. So yeah, but ethics is like it's a transparent concept, which I find that sustainability doesn't have that much maturity as a concept to be as much as transparent as we are thinking. So.
So did you find comfort in the regenerative architecture field than just focusing on sustainability?
Yeah, because in the regenerative, you will see the result is a slow design actually. So for sure it's not for everybody to work with a regenerative design, because it's a process which could not be like done in very short time. So in this time you have like you cannot like just do it, measure, and then we don't care how it's become. It's something that you need to see in 2, 3, 5 years. So it's a long-term process of designing.
Can you open that up a little bit? What do you mean by that, and what are the core principles of regenerative architecture that creates this nature of slow work?
Yeah. Like, for example, it's also a design that gives you responsibility. So if you are, let's say, a client who asks for regenerative design, so you will be caring from each resources you are using and the waste. So you will be including yourself as a responsible person who will take care of the garden, who will reduce the water consumption. Maybe you will be composting. And at the same time, it's like the garden is part of your daily life. Even though you will not, that doesn't mean you will take care of it, but the wildness, that means the part of it that you are offering to the biodiversity, you are okay with it. And this is why when sometimes you will find that the client, they are already aware with what they are asking. But for sustainability, you can come and just ask me, okay, make my house sustainable, and then we will go with the photovoltaic, and we will go with a very superficial and very like, we just change, it's simple, but without having a real engagement with the design. So. And it may be that it's really in details. It's not like, let's say, the regenerative design is not, it's better or less better than sustainability, because it's according to your need as a person, as a family, or as if I am school, I have different needs and different priority also. But when we work with the regenerative, we work with the invisible. That means the ground matter, the biodiversity matter. Yeah.
This is a very interesting point, because we, even in the sustainability crowd, let's say, all these conversations, when they talk about biodiversity, I feel like they talk about numbers. For example, just talking about London, let's say, when you plan on a site, you have to make sure that there is 10% more biodiversity. So they talk about biodiversity net gain, and it's quite strange.
Yes.
I feel like there are different approaches in this also, because the way you approached the site, you're talking about the living system, the kind of supporting the overall ecosystem. So there's I feel like there's a genuine interest in keeping that, then putting numbers.
Exactly, because life, we cannot measure it. And same for happiness. We cannot tell, okay, let's measure how happy we are and how. So when we work with the ecosystemic and telling that a building is alive, it will improve and it need maintenance, or no. So all this is part of a life, daily life also. So if in the design you don't include the lifestyle, the culture, all those, and you just build a final is aesthetically and visually beautiful, but then you don't engage with the people, with their culture, with their need, with maybe they will spend more time sitting in one areas, and maybe they love cooking, so they will be using a lot of water cleaning their vegetables, and they need maybe their kitchen garden. So then you work with the permaculture principle to include all those data that when we work with the design directly, this is what we learn from school. You have a concept and then you build and like you work with the aesthetic. And then you offer this to the client. But in regenerative design, you need to know about the lifestyle, the culture, how they interact and what their needs and like the possibility that they have in their house in order to support the environment and the nature and the biodiversity. Even those, if they are living in just a small urban area, there's always opportunity for greenery. And the regenerative design, it's also about wellness. And yeah, so it's not only about like regenerative design for only biodiversity and environment. So what about caring about ourselves, our mind, our soul in the design?
And how do you do that as an architect coming to a community that you don't know about cultural background, or let's say you're in a new country? What is that process? Like, what are the steps that you take to be able to actualize a project or just even start a project? You can also perhaps talk about one of the projects that you worked on that you think embodies these ideals of regenerative architecture.
One of the exciting projects that we are working on, it's when you arrive to a new culture that you don't know, or even, let's say, or you know just the basic, or what we learned through the media or the news. Let's talk about Africa, because this is where I am, and this is why we all hear Africa, they are poor people. Mm-hmm. They are colonized and they are not creative, and but somehow they have beautiful music, and so we reduce the culture to that. And I love spending the first day, a month, or sometimes the first year, just to observe and interact and try to capture the essence of the culture. So every time when I was asking, whatever the electrician or the carpenter, he always end up his word by telling, "We are together. We are together." And I was like, wow, it's very interesting, because this is like everywhere, they keep repeat it. And by making a research, I find this Ubuntu concept. Actually, Mandela was talking about it, the gathering and being together. And in the lifestyle of the African, when they are eating, for example, they never serve themselves individually. They always serve a big plate and they put it in the middle and they ask for people to join. And I was like seeing this gathering, the Ubuntu, in many aspects of the way how they live their city, how they have some codes, some social codes that are very important. And when you design for African people, even though they are modern, they never show their kitchen. The kitchen where they cooked need to be hidden, because for them it's not polite to show your wealth and to show food when you have just someone coming for just 5 minutes, or you need to invite him. So this kind of ethics of living or way of living invite us also to rethink this model that is coming from modernity, let's call it, from modernity. And are we okay with it? Because by living in Africa, I need to adapt to their culture. I am in Senegal, so I need to understand, first of all, in order to not hurt them. But at the same time, as an architect, I find it very interesting with working with the Senegalese, and they have this Ubuntu rooted in their daily life. So, and this happened in many cultures, even those you think you know the cultures, like when I came here in Qatar, same. They have rules, they have codes, social codes, that may appear in their design. And every time you enrich your way of design and it becomes more respectful, more aware, and more mindful. And this is what I care about, like having this mindful design when you are living in, you feel like, okay, your culture is in. You don't need to do more, or you don't need to copy the American style or the French style, even though there is elements maybe you can take, but you don't deal with some very important principles.
And I wonder how that's lovely, but it's just to understand a little bit more, how does regenerative architecture expand upon traditional design? Because you're talking about now traditions, the culture, the social aspect of it, and how does that come together? Because there are a lot of definitions we deal with in architecture, as you talk about regenerative architecture. Someone talks about the permaculture-inspired architecture, another talks about the sustainable aspects of it, and then the traditional architecture is what I work in to promote the kind of building techniques, the urbanism aspect of it. So how does regenerative architecture expand upon this concept of traditional design, or the traditional communities in that sense?
It's so interesting to see that we learned in school to separate the things. I realized this by looking to the program we were having and the people I learned from, and I was just noticing that I learned nothing in the school related to the value that I'm working with today. And the reason is because the design has happened here in the school. And I end up designing from here, which is totally different way, because designing with concept, designing with the philosophy, there is no context. And even if there is a context, they try to limit our eyes of an architect to just see the visible. So when I start working with whatever is here, wherever the invisible, the ground, the nature, I start feeling like the design is responding more, first. Second, I find myself co-designing, that human, we are not the center, that there is more. When you bring gardens, so the gardens have such character that a human action becomes not the most important, but at least you need to embrace it in a certain way that you engage with the outside and inside garden. So at let's say the 10 first years when I was working in offices with architects, so the landscaping is given to the landscaper, and he will be working with his concept, and for sure it's a teamwork. But it's not the same when you work with the ecosystemic way of thinking already the garden part from the house. Because for sure there is an in and out, there is a weather, there is a lot of climatic data, but if you work them all together from the beginning, the result is not the same.
That's lovely. So what I understand from your answer is that all this separation in the disciplines, meanings, people's areas of work, or even our understanding and all these definitions, you tie it into the education. But you studied yourself in France, and then how did that happen, that you started searching for this or finding comfort in the field that you're in now? What did inspire you? And also just thinking about the young architects or the students, what would you tell them? That's, you know.
I'm lucky that I studied first in Algeria. And for sure, it was a French colony, so there is a lot of French references, but we were lucky as students to go to the south, Ghardaia, Tarid, Timimoun, and learning about the vernacular architecture. So I was initiated to the vernacular architecture since my young age as an architect. And actually, I was in love with that. I was like, even if we try to copy it, it's very hard to reach this authenticity. And even though we have some references, architects that copied the vernacular architecture, but still, it's missing this kind of the soul. It's missing this human touch, like this craftsman mistake, let's say. So it's not perfect, and it's built in a certain way that it responds to a need, but at the same time, it's there is no control of the space as much as we learn as an architect to really control the space. With when architecture is here or is done by an architect, so we will talk about touch, we will talk about, but in my life I met a few humble architects, and this is the advice that they were giving us. Like we learn from tradition, from nature, but we need to have as less impact as we can in our environment.
May I ask who were they? Or would you like to share?
Yeah, when I was a student, I was having André Ravero as a reference. He's one of the architects that impact a lot of my way of working and seeing the world of architecture. He was one of the disciples of Hassan Fathi also, so we can see the impact of architects as Hassan Fathi also in our generation. We are young, but by meeting the work of those disciples, the message could arrive, and then I made my path on it, and maybe I had the garden as a solution for more authenticity and more how we call it, more response to my need as an architect. And yeah, so this is and then when you see in the story, you have also other architects for sure, but mainly in the Western world, I wasn't like very engaged with the kind of solution because it was like rooted in values that doesn't talk to my work.
I can relate to that. So I studied in Vienna, and what you do as a young person just starting the journey in architecture, first you try to really understand what's happening here, the technical aspect of it, because it takes time to understand how to design. And then you're facing this giant system, because what we call education, but it's a functioning system, and it's giant, and it's not something that you can pull things to one side and shape it. So they shape you in a way, because you're very young, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't recall any conversations like what we're talking about now, because the design aspect was more, it's focused on, just like you said, it's in your brain. And you actually focus straight away on how to design the building. It's not about thinking about the ecosystem, although that these conversations happen in sustainability, but it's not integrated into that design process in a way that, again, like you said, is a co-production, co-design, co-existence. So that's why I would say, even though there are people who come from countries that they had the opportunity to be in an environment where they get engaged with vernacular architecture, not everyone ends up where you ended up or where you're on your journey. So do you think, we were talking about also, I think it was really nice, I just want to highlight, you told me that you were very much inspired by your grandma.
Yes. Yeah.
And then you also mentioned the architect you're inspired by. So I think perhaps can we say that the people we meet, people we have in our life, and the inspiration that comes from them, the guidance, are these kind of the points or the kind of things that guide us in a certain direction?
Yeah, sure, because it's a journey. It's not like a final. I mean, this is why I keep telling I'm very experimental architect, and I rarely work with existing concepts or program. Every time, like, I love this kind of, maybe we are talking about a tradition and experimentation. For me, they are not.
Oh, just.
Yes, don't worry.
Yeah.
There is not a big difference between tradition and experimentation, or I don't like the word innovation, I don't know why, but
innovation?
Innovation, so maybe tradition was an innovation in certain how, who survived
that's very interesting what you say.
time.
I want you to open that up a little bit.
Yeah, so...
What do you mean by that? That it's an innovation? Do you mean that it existed, but we're just talking about it today?
We started somehow, one day we started with this solution. And maybe I have also to tell that the years that I spent in Asian country was a mind changing for me. Because like this southern part, I was always like curious about it, but by living there, interacting with people, seeing how skilled they are, and how the environment is as they communicate with the skills with their environments. So, and this is what my grandmother was doing. I mean, I grew up in a house with two different gardens, and she was a plant collector, but like I think all our grandmother was like this, like multi-scaled. So she was having in her hand solution for everything. And even when she was like traveling or going somewhere, she would come back with many plants, many tools, and so this is, I was like, as a little girl, seeing this as wow, a very inspiring way. And as kids also, we were playing with the basic. I don't remember myself spending my time in screen, or because we were connected with our environment. So imagine this environment, how many things, just a garden, we were bringing, taking, giving. So it's a dialogue that we lost today, but we have a price to pay. What is the price? So this is what we need also to be aware today.
So it makes me think now about the countries in the global north, which is a very much of a different concept than what you're talking about. There is no slow life there. The moment you wake up, it's like a clock. Wake up, get out,
in big cities.
Get ready, start the work, or quick coffee, quick breakfast, and it's a very much of a different concept. Again, being a part of a machine. So what do people do? There is a very clear concept of urbanization, and most of the people, a majority of the percentage in numbers, we know that they are heading towards the urban areas for economic reasons, for other reasons, I don't know. But so what do these people do to understand that they are causing the damage, but also they have a loss in this process, because not everyone had the chance of living in Vietnam, where you had the chance, of Senegal, or kind of going to global south to have the slow lifestyle. How one can create this in France, let's say.
I will surprise you. Even in France, we were living in the province, and actually we think that in France everybody speaking French, and this is not, France is not Paris. And by living in the province rural area, we were living with old couples, and so our house was in a kind of agricultural, not really rural, because the city was like just a 20 minutes. But I was finding myself very comfortable, because it wasn't that much speed. But the thing, like you are telling, that in those countries, everyone is going to the big cities. So the lifestyle that is sold to us is this modern lifestyle. And the old ladies was alone, mainly the old ladies, like she was having a few visits. So there is a kind of social misery that they are hidden. They don't want to face that they are failing on this. And because of the urbanism is done for productive people, so those old people, we hide them. And they don't express themselves, they have no word to tell. But for us, in the southern parts, those old people are part from our daily life. They have their word, they have their family positions, and they still have status. So, and then even you can find it in the design of the house. Which room I will give to the grandmother, and the family is not nuclear. But in Europe, we are more supporting the nuclear model. But there is a community who is suffering, this old community. So yeah, this is what I find very interesting, just to see how we can really shape city. Ho Chi Minh is a modern city. It's more than 12 million. There is university and everything, but the old grandma have her place in the city, have her role to play in the city. So she's the one planting the garden in the urban area, putting her boxes, and she's the one taking care of the fresh food that is very important in the Vietnamese food, for example. So this kind of relationship, social model, so we can see that it's impacting us in our life time, but also impacting our way and our value and what we want to care about and protect. Like the family's value are very important, so the house need to reflect that.
It's lovely, and it's just what you're saying is very close to my heart, because I feel the same way. But and also, I felt this when I first met you. Actually, it's only a few days since we met in person. But if you remember, when we first hugged, we hugged for a long time, like two friends who reunited after a few years. And I think these are the values that bring us together, the kind of principles that we like having in our lifestyles, and also the environment, maybe the farm environment, being in nature. Thank you, and I think my goal also is maybe not the goal, but when I speak with someone, or if I'm with the younger people, and this is the reason why we are here at the farm today to kind of for a 2 weeks program for younger architects, it's always nice that they hear these conversations, because that's kind of the starting point that inspires them and takes them somewhere. As we said, this doesn't really exist in the architecture education, but when one starts looking for that and going after that, the life evolves and takes you to different countries, just like yourself and myself, and you find that balance, and I feel that in you. Thank you, Soumia.
Thank you for you and what you are doing, and thank you for the opportunity for those students, because as a student, I know we are like seeking this kind of response, because we want more, we want an architecture that reflects our values, and we really care about our Southern Islamic values to be expressed in the urban and architectural world. So thank you so much.
Thank you.